Hello and welcome all. I hope we're live. I'll double check the chat. Do we seem to be go? I realize you will have a bit of delay, so I won't get much answer from there. Anyways, I just want to start with to do some small shout outs for some of the events we have coming up. My name is Petersson. I'm the community overlord at Sweden Game Arena, and I'm the one who's been hosting these type of events for a while. I'm also one of the founders at Stunlock Studio, so I'll be acting both as a panelist and a host on today's event. But to start with, I just want to remind you that you should not miss Sweden Game Conference this fall on the 14th to 15th of October. We'll start selling tickets probably next week, and you'll get all the info on the Discord, on the Facebook, on the channels you have at your school, and emails and everything. So keep your eyes out for that. On top of that, we're also gonna do this fall's first spelutvecklarpub. We'll go digital for this event on the 24th of September at 18. Spelutvecklarpub is an event for game developers in Skövde / Västra Götalandsregionen, where we meet and chat and network. And of course, we want you to join our Discord. If you have not already found this link if you're a new student, you should have gotten a flyer in your backpack. But if you haven't gotten it yet, here is one link. We'll also make sure that we post it in the chat a bit later. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're gonna host a panel, and we're gonna start with introducing our fantastic panelists. Let's go with Sean. Who are you, and what do you do?
Hi, I'm Sean Langre, and I am a co-founder and lead programmer at PocApp Studios. And currently in my day-to-day, I manage our programming team, and I'm also involved in some business stuff, and the rest of the time I code. And that's me.
Cool. Mattias?
I am Mattias Lindblad, and I do stuff. And that is not very helpful, so I'd say I am doing CEO stuff. I did co-founder stuff in the beginnings, and I'm also the game director for our games.
Cool. Daniel?
Cool. My name is Daniel Ström. I am lead producer and studio manager at Thunderful. We have an office here in town, so that's the studio that I manage, but we have offices around the country where I act as lead producer, which means that I talk to the people who run the projects. I help them with staffing needs, I help them with structure, give them feedback, and generally act as a snowplow to get any obstacles out of their way so they can make the best games possible with the team and the budget that they have.
Cool. I'll also do a shout out. We have Vanya in the chat. If you have any questions, ask them in the chat and we get them forwarded to us here. But we'll move on. How did you get here? Mattias, you want to go first? Or where you are today?
It's a weird road, I feel. It's very weird. But I mean, like, it started out with me and my twin brother making Warcraft 3 maps back in the day, right? Made some really crappy ones, made a really cool tower defense that we were very super proud of. We still play it at LAN parties. We have regularly, so it's quite the epic map. Only 30 downloads, I think, which is probably us, so it's not a big success. But then I think I studied like game stuff in high school, and then I learned of Skövde, of like, oh wow, you can make games in Skövde for real, and I was like, that was my lifelong dream. So I studied 3D graphics. When did I start? 2013, right? Yeah. And while there, I was just making a bunch of games with people I've met during projects, having a bunch of fun doing that. Like, most of those projects were really bad, but that was kind of the point of it, just to make a lot of crap during the study time. And then eventually we found we were a group of 5 people who found each other and worked really well together. So we founded Flamebait, made our first game called Passepartout: The Starving Artist, which was a smash hit, surprising everyone, including us. And it's been that path ever since.
Cool. Sean?
I early on I knew I was gonna do like computer stuff, but I started at DSU or HIS when I was 19, where I studied programming, and I did a lot of like side projects early on with other people, and I was in like 3 different groups during the course of the education. And the last one was during our like second game project that is attached to the education, and that was where like PocApp Studios was first formed, and after like we made 3 games, we made Castle Cats, and that was our like success, and that was 2015, and here we are today, and yeah.
Cool, Daniel.
Yeah, so much like Mattias, my journey in games started early on, but I dabbled in editors of all kinds, Heroes 3 maps and stuff like that. But it didn't become like a real thing until my partner's sister got into 3D here in Skövde. So she told me all about it, and I got really excited. My plan was to go to Japan and make Final Fantasy games. So I went to Japan to learn Japanese first, and then I moved to Skövde. But the plans changed somewhere along the way. So I studied design at the university, and when I got in, I was really, really hyped to make games. I was a bit older than most of my classmates, so I'd worked in like computer support before, and was dead tired of helping people get their password reset. So game design was a lot of fun, and I dove into it head first and barely came up for air in the process. I had my first internship at Paradox during my second year in 2012, helped them work on a game called Showdown Effect. And from there, during Game Project 2, I met a lot of talented and friendly people. That summer, we started making our own games. We started talking to the incubator. We got nominated for the Swedish Game Awards and slowly formed a company. We were 13 or 14 when we started, and that was called Guru. Yeah, not years old. But yeah, we were a bunch of people when we started, and that company was around until 2019 when we became sellouts. And me and Johannes, who were the only founders left, sold the company to Thunderful, and has been a part of Thunderful since then. So it was a pretty good deal. We got to keep making awesome games, but didn't have to worry as much about all the stuff that Mattias has to do with salaries and financial stuff. That is handled by our finance department, which is super nice.
You don't seem to have more time on your hands anyway, though.
Nope.
Well, for Stunlock side, or my side at Stunlock, we did. Yeah, you said you had a bit of a crazy journey, Mattias, but it feels like it's quite a similar journey as most of us here had, right?
Yeah, maybe
went to the university.
Maybe weird crazy people.
Yeah, so we went to the university. Back then there was a Game Project 3, which is also coming back. So if you started the first year now, you will have Game Project 3. During the last year, I was actually not part of that project group, but they were doing a game that ended up being this battle arena, which is Bloodline Champions. With that game, we were nominated in Swedish Game Awards and won that. We won 2 or 3 prizes in that one, and then we felt like this might actually we might be onto something. So we decided to keep going on that journey, doing very fast online games back in 2010. Not maybe the best thing to start with, but it worked out, fortunately. Came to the incubator, got help. They mostly told us that we're crazy, and being over 15 people in a company is going to cost us a fortune. We need to scale down. While we felt everyone else is doing the games we want to do are 100 people plus, so we need to scale up. And Chief Dom, as we say in Swedish, we managed to find a partner in Funcom, one of the biggest game developers in Norway. They became owners at Stunlock as we started the company. So that was a wild ride, and we lived on those money for quite some time. Did Bloodline Champions and released it. Went okay, not a financial fantastic success. This was also very early on in the free-to-play era of PC games in the West, while over in Asia it's been very popular for a long time. So we were very early on, and players hated free-to-play back then in another way than they do today. Now they accept the fact that it exists. Back then it was so new that they wanted it banished from Earth by that time still. So after Bloodline Champions, we continued, did some other stuff. We did work with Koch Media and did a Dead Island game for a couple of years. Unfortunately, like you may see in the game dev industry quite often, is that even a project that is quite close to launch was cancelled. Mostly due to the not successful building of the Dead Island IP, with the Dead Island 2 game being both not cancelled, but the studio working on it got canned, and they changed it, and then they changed it again. And I think I saw the trailer for Dead Island 2 like on E3 again, like a year or so ago, right? So it's been
Yeah.
it's been resurrected. It seems. We'll
Any
see if
day
it
now.
we'll see if it ever gets out. It's a really fun game though. And then after Dead Island, we came back to what we felt we wanted a revenge in English. Yeah, we wanted a second chance on the Bloodline Champions, so we made Balrite, which we could say is much like a Bloodline Champions 2 would have been. And that went quite well. We did that together with Coffee Stain as a partner, not a publisher or investor actually. And now we're working on V-Rising. So we've been here for 11 years now or so as a company, as a team, 12 to 13 years. So I guess we started to become quite a veteran in this day and age. Cool. When you said you needed to go to Japan to do the Final Fantasy games, that's quite cute, because when we started our company, there was a Final Fantasy game being made in Sweden.
In Gothenburg, yeah.
Yeah, but fortunately you didn't work on that one, because that also got cancelled
Yep.
mid-development, and it ruined the whole industry in Gothenburg for about 6 years, because 100 people working on that studio, and all of them had to find somewhere else to go, and there was nothing else in Gothenburg. So yeah, rest in peace, Green. So moving to more fun times.
Topics, yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to the industry. We cancel games, and you can work on Final Fantasy even in Sweden for a bit. So, do you have a favorite memory from your time at DSU?
Definitely.
Go.
I can start. So I had a blast during all 3 of my years at university. I got to know some of my best friends still in the world during those years. But one of my favorite memories was a design course we had in experimental game mechanics, where we got to design our own controllers and make games with them. And I was doing a lot of martial arts at the time. So I designed a game where I had boxing gloves wrapped in copper wire. And my friend Patrick had a couple of tie mitts wrapped in tinfoil, and a chopped up pizza box also wrapped in tinfoil with wires attached to them. And when you punched the tinfoil, you would get points. And then the game would show like a combination on the screen, and you would have to punch that combination as quickly as you could to get the most points. It was really fun for me. I don't think it was as fun for Patrick, who had to be punched to demo the game, and a lot of people wanted to try it, so he got punched a lot throughout the week. But it was a lot of fun and very creative process, and many of the other games during that course were a lot of fun to try and test, and it felt like we were stretching our design muscles quite a lot, and I learned a ton from that.
Sure, I can go next. I actually have 2, but I'll start with one and then we'll see. So the first one was our first game with our like side project group from PocApp. We made a game called Carpe Kitty. It was not successful, but anyway, we won the like Saga award with that, and we went to talk to we got to talk in the radio basically. So me and Dilaram was going to talk in the radio, and I was super nervous, and I was shaking on my voice, and you could hear it in the recording. And but that was it. That was fun to talk about something that you've done and in the radio. Yeah. Yeah, Mattias.
Okay, I'll kick it off. I think I kind of want to be a bit general before getting specific, like because what I'm thinking of is just all the times we were just sitting late nights in the computer halls just making games together, and they were pretty mediocre often, and it was usually side stuff we were working out together with our small little team. But I think specifically at the time, and it's a bit of a longer memory, I guess, but I felt the most magical was when we were prototyping Passepartout and the other games we were making at that time. It was like a period where we previously had been working on this mobile app that was like this. It was basically Pokemon Go before Pokemon Go. So we were kind of ahead of the curve and cool. Okay, not okay. It was before.
Do you know Patrick Jansson?
No. But that just we hated working on it because it was a game for our audience we didn't know, for a device we didn't use, for a game we didn't want to play. So it was like everything was bad. But then we started prototyping after that, and I think we just had so much creative energy pent up inside of us, and then we started rapid prototyping these really wild game concepts, like what if you own an art gallery, and like weird stuff like that. And that was really, really intense and really fun to do. Also getting, like Sean, like getting that verification from an audience, because we put it up online and got a bunch of people playing it and reacting to it, just similar to the radio. It's like, oh, people care about what stuff we do. Oh my god,
it's a good feeling.
Good times. Yeah, I mean, Swedish Game Awards, I'd say for us was that confirmation. We met the jury and they're like, yeah, this is really good, and oh, this could be the next Diablo. And then I could say our first offer was from a Swedish publisher, and it was 300,000, and we shouldn't do it online. We're like, because back then the game was only on LAN version, right? And in 2010 this was not really, you couldn't do a LAN game in 2010. We kind of felt like this doesn't feel great. Unfortunately, we had people helping us understand that the feeling was correct, and we're quite happy we didn't take that deal. So that's good.
Yeah, 300,000 would have lasted you, what, a month?
Back 15 people, 300. Yeah, not
Inflation back then.
Yeah. No, you don't get that far on 300,000. Do you think that the Swedish Game Awards one was 25k? That felt like a lot of money back then as well, but it's not even enough to start. It wasn't enough to start an aktiebolag back in Sweden then. It might be now, I think, though.
Yeah.
So, what do you wish you'd had known when you started at the university?
Who goes first?
Well, you can go first if you have something on top of your head.
Okay, I have a thing.
I'll let Sean go.
Okay. This is probably my fault, but so I didn't really understand what a academic school was, because I didn't want to go math when I started, and then I ended up doing a lot of math. Yeah, so basically the academic school is a lot of theory, and his is an academic school. And yeah, so basically, like, do practical stuff in your free time and start early with the practical stuff. Now I went to programming, so there's a lot of practical stuff as well. But yeah, that's just one of the things. And then I also should have looked into the his probably have that now, but looking into Unreal and Unity and Git/version control is something that I should have done earlier.
You could have a whole panel on version control, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Please no.
Nowadays, maybe they have courses on this, but back then, I don't think they did.
Daniel, did you have something?
Well, the problem is that I was really, really well prepared.
There was a problem.
So I no,
Don't come well prepared.
no, I think you should be, but I don't have a single thing that I can say, I wish I knew this,
Okay.
because my partner's sister had already
Mhm.
gone through the program. It took me 3 years to get in. So by the time I actually got in, I'd read all the course literature for the first year. I had friends who were already studying, and I like grilled them on all the stuff I should know, or which courses were hard, and knew that I needed to make games on the side and so on. So I was really well prepared. But if I can give you a tip instead, do that. Interview people who are in their second or third year. Ask them what they wish they'd known when they started, and try to talk to people who are just now entering the industry and see if they are regretting not doing something earlier. For me, it was 10 years ago, so it's also like my advice for that would not be as useful, because things move fast.
I think I would like to steal the advice I got back in that day from one of the father. What the hell is that in English?
Mentors, I guess.
Mentor, maybe.
Mentor, big boy person. I don't know. It was. She said like treat all of your classmates as if they're your future colleagues, because they are. Which means basically don't be an asshole. Like, think about how you behave yourself, because people will remember that. And if you behave in a good way, and if you put in your all in every assignment, people will remember you. But well, that's the person who's really committed and really did some really cool stuff. So I think that is one of the things that can really take you a long way after school.
I always find that advice a bit funny, because it feels like you shouldn't have to tell people not to be assholes. Like, who are you for real, Mattias?
I think my major point is that it's easy to see school as this is the world, right? And this is everything the world is, and everything becomes very important. So very small things can become very inflamed, and then you can get very angry about something that doesn't really matter in the end. And like being able to distance yourself, like, okay, am I being overly annoyed at something that doesn't really matter right now? And am I behaving like an asshole because of it? Maybe. I think that those are questions you could ask yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see. I mean, I would say, at least for all of us, most of our coworkers are most likely our old school friends, right? As well. And I'd say a lot of studios here in Skövde work like that. But it's also that it becomes a community. I mean, SGA is a community, and you're supposed to know people, and that's your network. And if people know you're good, then people are gonna ask people who's good, and then they're gonna know. And that's how we get the best people to hire for our studios as well. But I'm also in on the academic stuff. I think that issue still stands, that a lot of the students who start today don't know that they have applied for an academic school. To know that the school only gives you the tools, but to become the best and good enough is actually on you on the rest of the time. Studying should be a full-time job, and that means 8 hours a day, not just the time that is, on your schedule for 2-hour lectures every once in a while. To make sure to put in the work just as you start.
Definitely.
So, what do you think new students should focus on during their first year here coming?
Making games.
Yeah, making stuff. I think definitely just making stuff. And like, I think it's so easy to beat up yourself, like, oh, this isn't good, this isn't good. Like, it's not gonna be good for 3 years, and that's fine. Like, you need it to be bad. Like make as much bad stuff as you can, and then you'll be fine. It's gonna be excellent, I promise you.
Yeah. The one thing I had is like study work together, or study together, or like do stuff with other people, and like keep doing stuff on the side and with school and everything. Yeah, and make stuff that fails and do it again.
Yeah, I think that the advice is really easy to give, and it's very simple to follow, except that it takes a lot of time and energy. But make games and make friends. That's all you should do, basically. Also, if you finish your courses, but in general, those two things, if you do them consistently throughout your education, that's what's going to land you a job. And look at it like, I think art is best at this. Art does sketches and they do things that they throw away a lot of the time. They're focused on improving their skills. And that's something that design and programming and narrative and so on should also do a lot more. Like make games or make design schematics or prototypes that are meant to be thrown away. So learn stuff from them and then out the window. Don't take your favorite game idea from when you were a kid and try to make it now, because you suck at making games. So the game will be bad regardless if your idea is fantastic. And usually you come up with better ideas the better you get at making games as well. So I mean, you could even have a game jam where you focus on taking bad ideas and try to make them good, because you learn a lot from just working in the engines and so on.
Definitely. Keep at it. We have some questions from the chat. So I'm going to read this so I don't know the question, I'll read it. Would you guys say that people tend to start their own companies and find success, or that they get hired into an already established company? What would you recommend as an individual dev? So should you start a company or should you get hired?
I think it depends on what you want to do with your life.
Yeah.
It's like I don't think there's like a blanket answer to that type of thing. I think maybe the most general thing I can say is that the more specialized you are, the more likely you're going to be looking for employment at a bigger studio. Like if you want to be a tree sculptor, that is going to be a hard fit for like an indie studio or a startup, unless you're doing tree games. That might be a thing. I guess that would be. But I mean, like we started our indie studio. We was like, we don't know if this is going to work. It's been an invaluable experience. We were lucky as well. We made it actually work. But even if it didn't make it work, oh man, we learned so much from doing it. And we were able to do it during school and then a bunch of years afterwards, of course. So I would definitely recommend if you want to do a smaller game and find good people, that is definitely a recommended route.
I mean, I've advised against starting your own company recently and got some feedback on that, despite doing it myself and despite a lot of success stories in Skövde. But I'm not going to give that advice again. I think both have their merits, but it's also important to know that it's not a lifelong path. You can switch. I started a company, I built that company, and then I sold that company, and now I'm employed. A lot of the people that I started that company with started new companies or got employed or switched back and forth. And it's the same with your roles in the game team. You might start out as a 3D artist and then become CEO, or as a designer and then learning to code. Our best programmer at Guru after a while was a guy who studied animation and then got tired of how hard it was to implement that without bugs and started learning coding on the side. And then he became a really, really good programmer, and that's what he's working with now. But that knowledge from animation is really useful for him still in his career.
I don't have any more to add. Like you can go either way with that. I think both are good choices. It depends on what you want to do, and like maybe, and if you try to get into the games industry and you feel like you can't, then like try to do your own stuff.
Yeah. And even the startups who fail, a lot of those people end up getting jobs anyway because
it's a great
learned
experience.
a lot. Yeah. That being said, if you start a company, there's a lot of work that isn't game development that you need to learn as well.
Yeah.
That someone has to do.
Like Mattias.
Yeah, that could be fun as well. I think the main takeaway might be like there isn't a correct path into the game industry. There isn't like a straight line. You should take this road to get to where you want to be. It's always like a bit of a branching story where like all paths can lead to Rome, right? So I guess that would be my quote.
Yeah, I think you're on the right track. I mean, it depends on what you want to do. I mean, go in the indie way isn't easy. I mean, we see these companies there. All of us started in indie or startups, but the ones you meet and see are usually the ones who made it, right? You don't see all the other ones who didn't make it, or so you need. If you're gonna start your own company, you need to be ready for a journey, and you need to be quite devoted because it's not like people gonna throw money at you unless you're fantastically great at what you do. But then you could do either anyway, right?
Yeah, it took us 2.5 years, I think, to have salaries at all from when we started, and that's not unusual. Some people, like Mattias' company, had success with their first game, but even then, you
They
didn't
made
launch
the
that day
first game.
one. Yeah, exactly.
And nothing.
Developing costs time and money, and even being able to reach the finish line of your first project is impressive.
Yeah, we had our third game was our success. So
And how long did that take?
same as Daniel's, 2 years maybe, 2.5.
Yeah, I'd say it's something similar for Bloodline Champions. Bloodline Champions, the first project, which was not very close to what Bloodline Champions ended up being, was started in 2008, and the game was released, and the company started in 2010. No, company started 2010, and that's when we get the first money. Game was released in 2011, so it's still about 1.5 years for people to be devoted to make this work.
Yeah. Well, we had people working at Elgiganten on the side, and most of us were studying and stuff like that. So yeah, it took us a while to get a real salary.
Next question actually ties in a bit. So, is there a grace period starting your own company, or do you have to find success relatively fast?
You don't have to, but I think the most important part there is that as many people as possible, ideally everyone who's part of starting that company, knows and agree on how long are we going to try this? What's our runway? When do we need to start making money for us to be okay? Do you have savings? Do you have part-time job? How are we going to be able to finance ourselves up until the launch of the first game, and ideally beyond that, because you don't know if that's going to be a success. You can have a strategy where you say, we're going to make one game together, this company. We're going to keep working for 3 months post-launch, and then if we are not seeing any money, we're going to shut it down. That's an option. Or you can say, we're going to make games as a service, free-to-play game, and we're going to put 5 years into this no matter what happens, because that's how long it takes to build an audience or whatever. But if you don't align on those things and you start a company and then you postpone a deadline, like the game isn't ready, we have to go for another 6 months, that can create a lot of stress and tension in the team, and it might make people leave. But yeah, starting a company is very complicated, and it's different for everyone. I would recommend talking to the incubator. They have a lot of tips, and you can
absolutely
ask the other companies around the park as well.
Yeah, but make sure you're on the same page as the rest of your team, so you're in it together for at least long enough to get over one finish line, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So you see what we have more. Kind of comes back the same. Okay. Your best tip for the coming 3 years. So till the end. We've always said made the games. Make a lot of extra games. Okay, if you go above that one, or you can't say that one because we already said that one.
Shit.
Talk to other people. No, we already said that one as well.
Damn it. All our best tips are already out the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think finding a core group you can study with or work with or do stuff with can be really, really motivating and really important. Like if you can find 5 to 7 people or whatever who enjoy being together and inspire each other and motivate each other to do stuff, whether if it's just like a study circle of just sketching every weekend or every day or whatever, or if you're actively making games together as a group, or if you just whatever it is, like if you can find that and use that to like motivate yourself to produce more, you can come a long way, as well as you can get that external feedback from others, because it's you yourself are your worst critic, and you're really bad at it usually.
I have one it's maybe the same, but go to game jams and events and stuff. that the school and SK and that are like so you can meet new people and have like a purpose for the day or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, we already said the best stuff, but if I was going to add something that we haven't talked about, I would say this is an advice that nobody follows. But anyway, research the industry, learn about how game companies work, what roles are there outside of the disciplines that you study, especially in like the local industry. We have way too few applications from people who study here because they don't know which companies are around. And like a lot of the stuff Tao is doing with events and so on helps a lot with that, but don't let her do all the heavy lifting here. Like you should know which game companies are in Skövde. You should know what games they are making, if that is public information, and the rest of the country as well, and the rest of the world. Like learn how the industry works, and learn what you think is important when you're looking for a job later on. Is it what kind of games I'm working on? Then you should know what kind of studios are making those games and so on. That's
I would say that also applies if you think you want to start your own company. You need to learn the industry. Making games without any idea of what actually is needed to make it within the games industry, it's gonna be tough. We've seen it quite a lot in the incubator, I'd say, the startup program, that students come and they just want to start a game studio, but they don't really think about what type of games they are able to make and what games they should make to make sure that it can be more than a hobby project. I mean, you're here to make money if you start your own company. You have people to feed and rents to pay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have some questions from the chat. How much do you look at trends? Vikings, zombies, I guess vampires might be on that list right now, versus doing exactly what you want? Kind of connects to the...
I can talk for us as the more like art house indie of the bunch, right? We do what we want. We don't give too much credence to trends or all. But what we do is that we look into, like, is this a game that is able to be sold? Like, is what we want to make something we can sell? Because if we're going to make a local multiplayer brawler game, that's going to be really hard to sell, right? Because there's a bunch of those. So in that sense, we look at trends, but we don't like, Battle Royale or auto chess or whatever is the latest thing, and we just start trying to do that as well. That is not our style.
How do you figure out if you can sell them?
Oh, that is a tricky one. I guess we just look at like we keep a regular watch at the Steam release list and see what sells and what doesn't sell, and then you can get a pretty good, like, I guess we've built up an intuition at this point of what works and what doesn't work. But in the early days, it was more looking into, okay, we want to make this game. What game is it similar to? And then we go into the Steam Spy and look at sales data and compare, like, okay, what have the successful games managed to sell and how many unsuccessful games are there, and where could we land and who will we be compared to and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. I can say for us that there's usually trends that we enjoy at our company. So we usually do. I think nowadays that we try to do something in a trend that we enjoy. Like if there are no trends that we enjoy, then we wouldn't make a game in it. But like most of the time there is. So yeah, I think that's how we think about it.
Would you say cats were a trend?
Sure. Yeah. Are they out yet?
The eternal trend.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So even like smaller trends, it's like you make stuff that sells, right? So you gotta look some of that, but you can still do your own thing inside of that, I think.
Yeah, I would say that making something that sells is obviously sort of the point of making games if you run your own company and so on. But looking at existing data doesn't always give a good picture. There's a lot of survival bias. There's also the fact that like there's a business term called red ocean, blue ocean. Red ocean is where all the big sharks are, and like that's what Stunlock did when they made Bloodline Champions. It's like League of Legends own this area it's huge, but there's a lot of money there. So we're going to jump in with the big sharks and we're going to compete there. But then you have to know what you're doing and know that you're competing against some of the biggest and the best in the industry. But if you jump in the blue ocean, there's not as much data. There's not as many big sharks. So you're kind of going out on your own and seeing if there is something here. I think for a lot of indies, the best thing you can do is try to find a sort of a middle ground where you don't follow you don't compete on quality. You're not trying to make, like, one of our first mistakes was we tried to make a game that was Portal but better. For a team of students, that's not only incredibly arrogant, but it's also doomed to fail. But if you can make a game that is inspired by Portal but different enough that it seems its own thing and competes in a genre, first-person puzzle games, that have very, very few titles, then you're sort of moving into blue ocean territory. Like, there are not that many first-person puzzle games, and a few people did that successfully sort of around the time where we did this. The Talos Principle, for example. They made a first-person puzzle game in the same space where Portal is. So you can certainly do that, but don't compete on quality is my main advice. If you're a new company or a small team, try to compete on something else.
Yeah, and also don't look only at the big successes, because that's what we felt a lot. I mean, with the trends for a while, it was, as Mattias mentioned, local multiplayer games on one screen on Steam with 4 controllers. Like, how many people do this setup? And then you say, I do it like every week with my friends. Yeah, but you also study game development. I mean, most people do not have this setup at their home. Gang Beasts made it, fine. But that's about it, right? So just because someone else made it once, it doesn't mean. Just like we could say that puzzle platformers is not a big hit on Steam. But of course, there are some fantastic puzzle platformers who's made a lot of money. But if you look at how many has been released, the median income is not fantastic.
Nope.
But this one
That's
actually had a lot
more
to
of a
do.
dead ocean, because there are many who launch but none who are successful.
But yeah, do exactly what you want is probably a better idea than trying to... I mean, because it takes some time to make games as well. So if Vikings are very trendy right now, the time you're done, it's not going to be Vikings anymore, right?
Yep.
And I can say I think that's a thing, because we're doing vampire games right now, and it feels like just when we mentioned what we do, like 4 or 5 different big vampire games just popped up around the corner, and we had no idea. So it's some trends actually just start because they haven't been
done in a while.
No, yeah, exactly. So when did we see zombies? So wait 10 years and do a zombie game, and you're probably going to be just on time.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. We have more questions. Is there a system you use like bullet points to work out flaws or issues? Or is there a lot of just playtesting or mix of both? How does it look when you are working on a big project?
I think in our case, we work, like, obviously you need to do some work in advance on paper, figure out, okay, these are obvious problems that won't work. Like, we can't have 200 million players in this multiplayer server. It's not going to work, right? But from our side, we work primarily with trial and error style of design. And we do that by prototyping either the entire game or individual aspects of it. And I think what kind of usually happens that is pretty cool is that the game kind of starts talking with you and talking back kind of what it needs to work, and then you get kind of this conversation this was artsy, but you kind of get this conversation between you as a designer and the game itself of like, what does it need to feel good and become what it needs to be. And sometimes it changes, like you had one idea at the start and then it becomes something entirely else, and that's usually how we apply. So we work really like lean, agile, whatever you want to call it, in order to accommodate that type of production methods. And I know that probably not everyone is working that style.
Well, first of all, we do a lot of research in what kind of games, like where we want to be, and like what kind of genres we should be in. But then we also do a lot of prototyping, and to try out if like what we've found is actually going to work. And yeah, once you have a prototype that is good enough, then you can take a decision from there. Yeah.
I think a concept that we all work with is the concept of iteration. We start with something really small and then we try to improve it as we go along. And how you approach iteration can be very different from each and every team, but in general, a lot of us do both internal and external playtesting. So we play the game ourselves, but we also invite strangers, other game teams, people who usually don't play that kind of game. So we try to collect as much information and data from that as possible to make improvements. Sometimes we pay journalists to do mock reviews, which is basically a fake launch review, so we can get an idea of what they liked about the game. That can also shape the feature a little bit, but also the messaging. Like if people are really hyped about the story in one of our games, then that's what we try to push. Maybe we focus more on the story in the trailer or in the press release. This is more nitty-gritty stuff, but yeah, when you want to improve the game, there are many ways of doing it. But do try to get other people's perspectives on it and not just like design the game that sounds best in your head.
Definitely. I can jump in on the how does it look when you're working on a big project. I'd say we do a lot of testing, but all the designers at our place can do at least scripting, but also programming. So they have do have a lot of tools, of course, so they can do a lot of testing on their own and work with that before it goes into the actual game where it actually starts to need to work with servers and all that kind of stuff. So, but like for the prototypes for V-Rising, we started with the old Battlerite engine, right? But now it's completely newly built. So, but a lot of testing, of course, but it becomes a bit trickier when it comes to such big projects. For us, this is also a bit new with V-Rising having so many more systems and stuff that needs to work together compared to our previous games that are more like MOBA arena type of games. Then it was fighting, and that's in some systems, meta systems around. But here we have to have so much more bigger projects. So we actually right now we work on we have milestones with different focuses where we have a focus like first player experience or if end game or whatever, and then we work towards those different types of stuff. So it's hard to playtest all of the game at once because all parts of the game isn't done. We've done fighting tests, like how is the fighting system and is it enjoyable and what could we. So we have people working on just one system at a time, and then in the end we put them together, and then we have to do more playtesting, see how they work together. So it takes quite some time.
Yep.
To do bigger games that has a lot of different type of systems. Cool. We are kind of running out of time, so I'm gonna push some fast ones here, or maybe not everyone has to answer everything. What would be the optimal amount of people for any given game, like say a narrative game or a RPG game, just as an example, or does the amount of people not affect the workflow?
Yeah, it definitely affects workflow. I don't think there's a set number. Like you can make a half an hour narrative game in RPG Maker, or you could make Witcher 3. Both are RPGs, but they're very, very different, and you need a different team size. So it's impossible to answer.
I'd say we can go back to what we talked about before, that look at the industry. What type of game are you making and how much money can it make? If that can't sustain the 15 people team you have, you should not be making this game, or you should make a smaller team, for example. But you should also avoid 30-minute games on Steam, because right now they're just getting returned and
refunded. Yeah.
So don't do that. Okay, let's see. Next question. Are companies open for visits like a small tour if you contact them personally as a student?
Not during COVID.
No one's here. I mean, there are a lot of students. I would say for Stunlock, we do not do that many tours like that. We might do some together with the Sweden Game Arena or something like that. That's for specific students. If you want to get tours on and visits on companies, you should make sure to network and become friends with these people.
Yeah.
If you
we,
have beer with them, you can probably come by.
yeah, we maybe like email us and we'll see.
We've done it a number of times. I was given a tour of Coffee Stain when I was a student, and it had a big impact on me. So I try to offer those kind of things when we have the time, which is rarely. But also, it's not that exciting. Like it's people behind computers. So I think it's almost better to meet them out for a beer rather than when they're busy coding things.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of awkward to answer because I'm working remotely from Gothenburg.
Yes, don't come there.
No, I mean, like, yeah. You're welcome home by my house. You can grab a cup of coffee. It's not much a studio, but yeah, I don't know if the other guys feel like, oh, this is awkward and oh no, people. I don't know. But I guess like it sounds like a good idea. Like if there's a lot of people want to visit studios, shout up Tao, and maybe you could organize something bigger because it's easier. Like if we're 10 people who want to see some studios, then could make it a bit easier rather than one by one, maybe.
Yeah, it depends on like if you're gonna go at a tour of the studio, you should be prepared on what you're gonna see. You're gonna see people working. You're gonna get a small presentation from the company in some meeting room, or here would probably be the lounge. And then you just walk past and we'll say, here's the design team, here's the artist, and they look like, and then it won't be that much else.
And if you're lucky, you might have a NDA to sign.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Of course. Sometimes we do it if you come to playtest. Of course.
That's also a thing.
And we do those shoutouts in the Discord and stuff sometimes as well. Okay, what is your take on a single-player story mode game?
I like it.
I guess
It's
the question
a very
is,
broad
should you
question.
do them?
I think you can make them and make them great. I think there are some difficulties if there's like linear storytelling, especially when it comes to marketing that experience in a way that fits the modern market, especially when looking at influencers and stuff like that. Working with linear storytelling is difficult, but if you're doing something more maybe dynamic or something like that, it could definitely work. Story, like games are story, so yeah.
Make them over 2 hours.
Yeah, make them over 2
That's the
hours.
thing. We're launching one of those single-player story-driven games on the 10th, so we'll see how it goes. Lost to Random, check it out.
How often are game studios looking for new people to hire here in Skövde? At the moment, it feels like everyone is. But we can say that it's a lot of the requests right now are people with some experience.
Yep.
And after a while, we realize it's going to be tricky to fill, and then we lower our expectations over time with people.
Sort of, yeah.
But you have to be good.
Yeah, you have to be really good, but like,
So portfolios matter?
portfolios definitely matter. But I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities in town the next couple of years. I think we're going to hire maybe 25 people in the next 2 years or so. And I don't think we're alone. So get good and you'll get a job.
But yeah, our last question then is what should they be prepared for when they are ready to start looking for work in the future? I think we just mentioned portfolio a bit, and I mean, because that's something we feel sometimes is that the students here are like they do their thesis and then they are like, oh, now it's time to look for a job, and they are not prepared. What should they have done differently?
Well, the portfolio is a good thing. I think get ready to have some samples of games you've made as well, and structure your portfolio in a way that it's easy to look through quickly. Like, I want to know if I'm looking at the design portfolio, I want to see a YouTube video of the game. I want to have a short bullet point description of what you were working on, and maybe a more detailed breakdown of a certain mechanic or a level that you worked extensively on. But beyond that, I don't need that much more. I don't need 50 pages of dialogue. I just want to see a quick overview of your work. Then there might be design tests and that kind of stuff as well. A lot of people we hire who are juniors come through internships. And to get an internship, you have to show that you're eager to learn new things and have a portfolio, basically. So if we like your portfolio and if you seem eager to learn new things, you have a good chance of getting an internship here. But it's also a matter of timing. Like we can't add interns super late in production because you're not gonna be useful for that particular game if you come in really late and need to learn the ropes, and we're probably really busy doing the final touches. So sometimes you're great, but it's just not the good timing.
Yeah. My thing is just like you might not get in straight away. But keep at it, and also like Daniel said, be interested in your subject and be interested in learning new things. That's all I have.
Yeah, I think I have to echo that. Like, portfolio is the most important. Like, it's the pillar we're looking at usually, I think. But I also think, other than that, we're looking at character. Like, who are you and how would you fit our team? And I think because we have been students, if for instance, if I see a portfolio or a resume or whatever that doesn't show that you've been doing stuff outside of schoolwork, that's immediately a red flag, because that means that you're doing the bare minimum to get by. And what would that mean if I hire you or take you on as an intern? Like, I will have to tell you what you need to do on a daily basis, or you're like looking for new stuff to learn.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't done anything else than what you've had to do at school, that means you only touch the surface and you haven't practiced your trade, right? I mean, they learn you how to do, they teach you how to do, well, you do 3 games, so they teach you some engine and some other stuff, and then 3D artist, they teach you how to do a character, but they're going to teach you how to do one character. You need to do 300 before you're gonna be.
There's a very clear connection between the people who had free time projects during school, at least our years, and the people who got hired, especially in the design and art departments. I think programmers, if you finish the program, most of them were good enough to get a job, but they also had a lot of people dropping out because it was really difficult. But yeah, there's a very clear, like we had 7 people in my design class who got jobs, and all 7 of them had been working on free time project. Most of them had launched at least one game before they graduated or more. So that's what you're competing against.
Yeah.
So keep at it. That's too wrong. Okay, we have one question. Hello, I'm late. What's the most common mistake when making games? No, wait, that's a negative question. We need to say what's the... Okay, first this one. When making games, I don't know, maybe if you want to take it from a startup perspective or just making games. We have Sven here, or version control.
I think overscoping would probably be the most common, especially the most damaging for when you're doing your first projects, because it's like very morally damaging as well when you're like, you want to make Witcher as your first game and you think it's reasonable but it's really not, and then when you can't make it you get sad. So learning to scope down, make it smaller, and then when you made it smaller, make it even smaller, and then we got that, you cut it half in size, and then you got probably something a bit too large for you still.
It's the same sort of advice that we got when we were students. It's really easy to give and really hard to follow, because you see how all things tie together, and like, oh, but if we cut this, then the story won't make sense. But if we cut that too, then we don't have a game anymore, and people get protective of their stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like a lesson you have to learn again and again.
Yeah. Your first game, you like, especially if this is your first game, just make sure you complete it. Like, it doesn't need to be. Yeah, make sure you complete it and go on to the next one.
Cool, but I don't want to end on such a sad, but negative question. So, one last tip that they should bring with them during these 3 years, that doesn't have to do with portfolios or that stuff.
Play games with an analytical eye. I think that's also something that people forget a lot. Like, you can learn
games. No, sorry.
Yeah, but Sometimes, yes. I've had games ruined by designers because they find all the exploits and suddenly the game is not fun anymore. But you learn a lot from that. And one of the lessons that we had to learn early on was that not everything in a game needs to look great. It's easy as an artist to focus on the asset that you're making, that the tree needs to look fantastic or this railing has to be great. And then suddenly you have problems with optimization, your frame rate is shit. And also, if you look at a lot of AAA games or even in indie games, you'll find out that people who make them are smart in what they prioritize. You can have really, really ugly assets in a really pretty game because they knew what to focus on.
Yeah, there is a lot of shortcuts that you can take in like most disciplines.
Yep.
I want to say the classic. Don't forget to have fun. All right, because and I mean it because you have like 3 years now of you being able to do whatever projects imaginable, right? You can try the crazy
that
stuff.
doesn't have to sell.
Exactly, it doesn't have to sell. It shouldn't usually sell. Like, it won't, realistically. and you can do all kinds of fun stuff. Like what happens if you make a game about gaslighting the player? Like what would that be? I want to make that at a game jam sometime. I don't even know what it would be, but yeah, that's my advice.
Cool. Did John have anything more?
No.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Cool. I'll join in, Mattias. There. Have fun, connect with people, and use this time. You have 3 years to become a game developer, and it's your responsibility to become one that's good enough to hire. Or if you start your own company and want to take that route, that's fine as well. But you could do that even if, as long as you're good enough, right? But maybe you might need a few extra hats for that one. Cool. I'll just want to do a quick reminder to join the Sweden Game Conference on October 14th to 15th. It will be both online and on Arena Skövde. More information coming soon with ticket releases and so. Spelutveckla Pub, 24th of December at 18:00. We're going to be on Zoom. We're going to be all them game devs, and we're going to be in small groups talking and enjoying ourselves. We've been doing it before, not in maybe this amount as we'll end up with this time, but it will be much fun. And of course, keep on our Discord. Join the Discord and meet us there. Don't be afraid. Some channels are a bit quiet. That's also a tip I want to add. Ask questions. We have all these experienced game developers. Whatever you want to know, ask questions. You can have like a panel ongoing constantly on this Discord with 100 panelists. Whatever you want to know.
It's a great resource, especially as a student. So use it. And that's also a way to learn and get attention on stuff. Like if you have a game jam game, post a link there and ask for feedback. There's a lot of people like us here who love to give feedback and love to help people who are early in their journeys. It's a lot of fun for us.
Yeah, definitely. And I won't give feedback unless you ask, because usually that doesn't go well.
Cool. And I think that's a wrap. Thank you everyone for joining today, and hopefully we'll see you soon at the conference or other panels and similar events.